Before I start my talk this evening, I'd like you to take a moment to consider a few things. I'd like you to imagine what it would be like if you left here this evening having connected with the one thing that could literally change your life. Imagine if in 30 minutes from now, you could uncover what it is that you are doing in your life today, but most importantly, understand why the hell you are doing it. For many years now, I've studied people, and I've studied them in many different environments, from the military to professional sport and in the world of business. And over that period of time, I have discovered that there is one common denominator of all the happy, thriving, and successful people within those environments. And that common denominator is purpose. People who have real purpose, who are driven by a deep-seated and meaningful sense of purpose. And by the end of this talk, I'm pretty much hoping that you can connect to yours. So in order for us to explore this a little bit further, I have to start at the beginning. And to start at the beginning, I'm going to introduce you to the three core functions of human existence. We are no different to any other species on Earth. We live by three core functions. The first one is survival. We have an innate requirement to survive in its simplistic form. And there is two parts to this. The first part of this is core survival. Basically and simply put, we have to eat, sleep, drink and breathe to stay alive. It's not really a choice. But it's the second element of survival which plays a more active role in our lives, and that is threat management. Now, threat management is our ability to recognize, be aware of and manage threat to ourselves and those around us. Now, what started out many years ago for the people you can see on the screen, threat management largely consisted of: don't put your hand in that fire, run, there's a lion, or don't step into another tribe's territory. And if you fast track through the generations today, and arguably we are the most anxious generation the world has ever seen, threat management has infiltrated into our everyday life. We worry about almost everything: danger, threat, perception, what the media tell us. And I'll come on to this more in a short while. The second core function of human existence is reproduction. Again, we are no different to any other species on Earth. We have to survive, yes, but we also are programmed with attractions and desires, which means we need to find a mate and reproduce. And if you think about those first two core functions, it is an innate requirement. There's no choice, it's instinct. We are born with them and we are programmed with them. But it's the third core function of human existence which we're going to focus on this evening, because this is the one that has the ability to change our life. It's also the one, if you think about it, the only one which is a choice, and it's purpose. As well as surviving, as well as having our family and reproducing, we have to feel, neuroscientists will tell you, we have to feel like we have a purpose, a sense of belonging, a reason for being here. It's our job, our role, our calling, whatever it may be. And I mentioned earlier that purpose is the common denominator of the most successful people that I work with. And if I was to elaborate a little bit more on that, I would say that if I was to define it, I would say it's those people who are doing the things which they are genuinely passionate about. People who genuinely connect to what it is they are doing. It's not transactional, it's a genuine passion. To bring this point to life, I'm going to tell you a quick story. 2 weeks ago, I was having a conversation with my 7-year-old daughter, Isabel, and I said, Isabel, what would you like to do for a job when you are older? That's the exact way I phrased the question. What would you like to do for a job when you are older? And she answered me instantly, I'd like to be a shopkeeper, Daddy. I thought, great, wow. I said, why do you want to be a shopkeeper, darling? She said, well, there's loads of shops, so there'll be loads of shopkeeping jobs. We have shops at the end of our road, so I can walk to work, Dad. I don't have to get in the car or get the bus. And I thought, great, she's thinking logistics already. And it was just sort of straight off the bat. So I said, okay, let me ask you a different question. If you could do anything you wanted as an adult that would make you the happiest, what would you do? And her response caught me off guard. She said, well, I'd like to help those poorly children that we see on the TV, Dad. And I said, wow, That's great. Why would you like to do that? And she said, because it makes me sad when I see it, and therefore if I could go there and help them, it would make me happy. And you asked me what would make me the happiest. And there and then, in that moment, in a conversation with my 7-year-old daughter, all my thought process and research into this subject matter came to a head, because it's what I see every single day. As what we tend to do, and not everybody, but we totally separate our jobs and careers from our passions and interests. And for many people, we see our jobs and careers as a 9 till 5, Monday to Friday, that will pay us a wage so we can provide for the things we need in life, and then we'll pursue our passions on the weekend. Where the magic really happens is when people combine the two. And when people combine the two, they never feel that they will work a day in their life. So, what is the purpose of purpose? We get that, okay, Martin, but what is the purpose of purpose? And without getting too scientific, I want you to take you through a cycle that I created because I could not find something anywhere on this. And this is the self-fulfillment cycle. We get self-fulfillment in our lives when we release certain chemicals in our brain called dopamine, oxytocin, and serotonin. These are the feel-good chemicals, when you feel on top of the world, when you can punch through walls, when you have adrenaline, elation, a real sense of achievement. And once we get self-fulfillment from doing something, we crave it again and again. It's like a drug. So the biggest contributor to self-fulfillment is our purpose, and that is why it has the ability to change our life. And I'm going to spin something on its head here, because what we tend to do, if you think about it, is we look at self-fulfillment and we look at the outcome, and the outcome is the reward or recognition we get when we achieve something. So then we go, okay, what goals are we going to set? So we start with the what. I'm going to run a marathon. I'm going to start a business. Let's go traveling. We're going to have kids, whatever it might be. And then once we've set that goal, we work back to the how. And we say, okay, I've got my goals. That's going to give me self-fulfillment. Now I'm going to put my plan in place and I'm going to try and achieve it. And we set off in our endeavor, in our bid for self-fulfillment. And when you attack the self-fulfillment cycle this way around, and most of us do, two things happen. A large percentage of people fail to achieve their goals. And those that do, somehow the self-fulfillment is either incredibly short-lived or it doesn't quite feel as you thought it would. So what is happening here? What I observe is that people who start with the what and then work back to the plan are heavily influenced from their environment and from the outside in. So they're doing the things they think they should be doing. Students maybe have chose a career path from a list of degrees that were available. You might be following a path because it was the list of jobs available in the job centre. Your friends are doing it. The media says we should do it. And when you start with the what, you're operating from the outside in. So, which means when you go back to set your plan and then you go to try and achieve it, you are unlikely to offer the significant contribution required to achieve your goal. Only unlikely. What very few people do is start with the why. From in here. Why am I doing this? Why is this important to me? Am I passionate about this? Does it align with my values? Have I done this before and I've already got self-fulfillment? When you start with the why, it's important to you, and then you go to the what and set the plan. Trust me, when you go back to the how, you are far more likely to offer the resilience, commitment, discipline, and determination required to achieve your dream. So, at this point, right, it's simple. We have 3 core functions of human existence: survival, reproduction, they're non-negotiable. The one that can change our life is purpose. So all we do is we align ourselves to something we're passionate about in our bid to achieve self-fulfillment. Simple, right? Not necessarily. What I'm going to introduce you to now, because it's all well and good having a passion or aligning yourself or setting a goal and starting from the inside out, but as anybody will tell you who's faced adversity or has dared to go and take risks and achieve something, it is a long road between the how and the what. And you need resilience, commitment, determination along the way. So what is it that is going to make you, in those hard times, stay in the fight? And this is what I call sense of purpose. Many experts and books talk about purpose and sense of purpose as the same thing. I don't believe that's true. I think your purpose is your calling, what you align yourself with, but your sense of purpose is the reason why you're going to stay in the fight when it gets tough. And we have put this to the test. I've collected hundreds of data points from one-to-one interviews with companies to psychology sessions with professional sportsmen to executive coaching sessions, and we absolutely grill them. Why? Why are you different? Why are you going to go above and beyond? Why are you more resilient than anybody else I know? And what I want you to think about as you talk you through this is I've created 4 categories of sense of purpose, and I've never met anybody who doesn't fall into these 4 categories in some fashion. So I want you to think about where you might be today. The first category is prove. This is driven by desire, and stories of people in this category are people who want to prove a point. They want to prove somebody wrong or prove somebody right. Stories of parents and coaches and teachers writing you off when you was younger, saying you'd never amount to anything. People who are driven by that desire to prove a point. On the contrary, prove somebody right. Stories of parents who had spent their life savings on putting you through university so you could get a degree and have a better opportunity. And they have to prove that decision right. Really, really deep-seated and driven. Stories of parents taking you to your 3-hour round trips twice a week so you could go to your rugby or football practice so you could have the better opportunity. People who fell into the prove category were driven by a desire to prove a point. Immensely, immensely powerful. The second category, which 99% of people, when I ask them the first question, fall into, is provide. People who want to provide for their family, provide money, cars, houses, holidays, that materialistic need that we need in life, and they can't look beyond that. I just want to provide. I just want to provide. It's driven by a need. The third category was achieve. And this is people who are highly driven or highly motivated by the fact that they want something tangible to leave a legacy or their name. So this was really common with students and sports people. You know, certainly for a student, if we've got any in the room will resonate with this, you're not in it for the money. Certainly in the short term, you are not in it for the money. What you tend to be in it for is to achieve the maximum grade you can and have that piece of paper, that master's, that degree, which rewards you for your efforts. Sportsmen and women, and again we can ask Jamie and Lucy at some point later, but very rarely do I meet people in sport who are driven by money. It's enough when it gets to a certain point, and they are highly driven by the fact they want to achieve trophies, medals, recognition, international honours. Achieve was a really powerful category driven by desire. And the final one, which without a shadow of a doubt is a fine line, but it's the most powerful sense of purpose that I've ever come across, is people who wanted to avoid embarrassment, failure or struggle. And this is the only one of the 4 categories which is driven by fear. As any neuroscientist will tell you, fear and desire are the 2 strongest emotions in the human brain, but fear is twice as strong as desire. And that is why our anxieties and our fears are far more crippling than our desires will ever be motivating. But for those people who manage to use it and harness it and leverage it, it's an incredibly powerful sense of purpose. So they're the 4 categories of sense of purpose. So where do these come from? And I know I've just shared a few examples of where each category came from, but really if you strip it back, they can be created or inherited. And what we found is that you can create your sense of purpose through your own thoughts and experiences, and this really breaks down into 2 areas, either really positive experiences of your upbringing or hardships. Some of the strongest sense of purposes, including that bottom right category, is born out of hardships. People who was brought up in single parent families, people who experienced death in the family at a young age, people who experienced bullying, etc., etc. Or it can be inherited. Inherited is a predefined set of beliefs that you've somehow been influenced by or taken on. A couple of examples of this would be politics or religion. You might have been born into a faith that you've carried on in your older life, and you know that will highly drive your sense of purpose. So it can be created or inherited. So if you manage to connect with one of those categories as I was talking, in terms of yourself, this might give you a little bit of an inkling of where that came from. But then people say to me, Martin, this is great, yeah, I get it. You know, I can see myself in this box, but I also can see a little bit of myself in this box. And do you really have the same sense of purpose for all of your life? Well, no. What we've found is that, yes, you have a primary sense of purpose, which is, born out of your created or your inherited, which is deep-seated and usually stays with you. But you can have secondary sense of purpose where it depends right on the here and now and your current circumstance. I'll give you an example. I've always been driven by that bottom right-hand box, that avoid failure, embarrassment and struggle, and that will never go away. But my secondary sense of purpose right here now is to prove a point. And I've never been in that category of prove a point, but I'll tell you why I'm in that category. When I left my career to start my own business less than a year ago, I put my notice in and my boss laughed at me. And when he stopped laughing and realised I was serious, the first thing he said was, "It's okay, you'll be back in 8 weeks when it all goes wrong." Now, boy, if I wasn't driven enough already to go and make it work, I bloody am now. And the fact I'm sharing that with you this evening, it shows you that it still stayed with me. So I am still driven by my primary sense of purpose, but right now I'm in that proof of a point box. So yes, it will flex and it may change as you go through different stages of your life. Okay, so it's simple, right? We find our passions, we connect to what it is that we want to do, and then we somehow connect with our sense of purpose and what's driving that, and then everything will be okay. Not necessarily. I want you to know that we are all programmed to fail. Now that might seem doom and gloom, but hear me out. For anybody who's ever struggled with self-confidence or anxiety or depression even, I want you to know that you're no different to the rest of us. We are programmed to fail. I'm going to explain myself in a second. But you are not weak, you are not inferior, you are not a lesser human being, you are just like the rest of us. So what do I mean by this? In order to better understand this, I need to bring back the first two core functions of human existence, survival and reproduction. So as well as our brains being really clever in releasing dopamine and oxytocin and serotonin when we get self-fulfillment and we feel really great about ourselves, our brain also is really clever and it tries to protect us, and we release a chemical called cortisol. Many of you will have heard of this. Cortisol is released when we feel fear, anxiety, or to warn us of danger. Now, if you think about modern day life, we want to travel the world. To travel the world, you've got to go to some, certainly right here today, you've got to go to some countries that, are quite dangerous or considered as dangerous. You've got to get on a plane. Many people hate flying. To make friends, you've got to go first. You've got to open yourself up. You've got to give yourself to people. And we get burnt from time to time. And then, we want to go for a job. We've got to go to an interview. We've got to sit in the hot seat, answer questions. You doubt yourself whether you're good enough. If you don't get the job, you deal with rejection. If you do get the job, you've got to perform. And there's even more pressure on you. If we want to get a partner, we've got to sell ourselves. If we want to keep a partner, we've got to be, we've got to sacrifice. We've got to flex. We've got to be patient. We've got to give. And all these things in modern day life can release cortisol. And if we let it get away from us, it can really harm us. And then we go and reproduce, or many of us do. And some of the fathers and mothers in the audience will relate to me when I say this. When you reproduce, you then carry that burden on behalf of 1, 2, or 3 other people at the same time. And, it's this never-ending sort of danger, fear, strap down, be secure, play it safe. So what's my point here? I want you to understand that we are programmed to fail. We're programmed to fail. But the day that you realise you are programmed to fail, the day is the day you will stop being hard on yourself. And the day you stop being hard on yourself is the day you'll start to take risks. And the day you start to take risks, you will know you have purpose. And guess what? Purpose can reprogram yourself to succeed. So, I hope I'm on time. Lee's not giving me any daggers yet, so I'm doing okay. Before my parting message, 5 takeaways of, let me pick the bones out of what I've just said. Choose a purpose that you are genuinely passionate about. Because if you can do that, and it's not possible all the time, but if you can try to do that, it will never feel like you work a day in your life. Most importantly, even if you can't follow that for now, in whatever you are doing today, connect with your sense of purpose, the reason why you're going to stay in the fight and be successful. Focus on the things you control. People who focus on the things they can't control suffer with anxiety. They become a victim of their environment and circumstance. People who focus on the things that they control only are the masters of their destiny. If you want to reduce the effects of cortisol and you do anything going forward from today, Focus on and worry about the things that you control only. Really important one, reset expectations of yourself and others. What I observe quite a lot in my job is that people expect perfection of themselves and positivity from others. And it's a hugely flawed model. I'd ask you to consider to allow a little bit of failure for yourself. Allow a little bit of failure of yourself, but also expect negativity from others. The day you expect negativity from others, because shit happens, the day you expect negativity from others and you allow a little bit of room for failure for yourself, you will instantly become more resilient. Build strong, positive, mutually beneficial relationships. I said purpose is the common denominator of all successful and happy and thriving people. Well, a close second will be there's a direct correlation between those who build great relationships with others and get self-fulfillment. So let me leave you with this. On your way home this evening, ask yourself 2 questions. What are you doing in your life today, and why is it important that you do it well? These are the greatest 2 questions you can ask yourself, especially the why. Young children are the masters of this technique. They live in a bubble of innocence with no regard for tough conversations. They relentlessly ask the questions why. Why is the sky blue, Daddy? Why do babies come from there? Why do you always have to work away, Daddy? Why are you always on your phone? They challenge us to answer the questions that we often avoid or do not stop to consider ourselves. So on your way home this evening, answer these 2 questions. What am I doing in my life today, and why is it important that I do it well? Aligning yourself with a purpose that you are truly passionate about is the start, and it's only the start. But regardless of that, connecting with your sense of purpose is an immensely powerful thing, because it means that you have made a conscious decision to offer a significant contribution to a particular cause, and there is nothing more powerful than a decided mind. At the start of this talk, I said that out of the 3 core functions of human existence, only one is a choice. So if you haven't already, I believe you have a choice to make. Do you live and come alive, or do you play it safe and survive? And the only difference between the 2 is purpose.